Some moments in life change the way you see the world. This was one of them. It was my first time visiting London, and I was completely in awe of the city. Everything about it, the old buildings, the rich history, the constant movement of people, felt surreal. But there was one thing I had been looking forward to the most: seeing the Royal Guards. You always hear about them. The soldiers in bright red coats, their tall black hats, their perfect stillness. They stand there, motionless, never reacting, no matter what. It's a tradition that goes back centuries. So, like every other tourist, I made my way to Buckingham Palace to see them for myself. The crowd was thick, full of people holding up phones, taking pictures, and laughing as they tried to get the guards to break character. Some made silly faces, others cracked jokes, but the soldiers didn't move an inch. Their discipline was incredible. At first, it was all fun, just people admiring something they didn't fully understand. But then, I noticed a group of young men standing a little too close to one of the guards. Something about them felt different. They weren't just watching out of curiosity. They were up to something. One of them, a guy in his early 20s, was holding a large takeaway coffee cup. He had a smirk on his face, whispering and nudging his friends. They were filming, laughing, encouraging him. I didn't know what he was planning, but something in my gut told me it wasn't good. And then, he did it. Without warning, he threw the entire cup of coffee at the royal guard. It hit the soldier straight on his chest, the dark liquid splattering across his pristine red uniform. The stain spread quickly, soaking into the fabric, dripping onto his gloves. The reaction from the crowd was instant. A collective gasp filled the air, followed by stunned silence. No one could believe what had just happened. I felt my heart pounding, my fists clenched. But the most shocking part? The guard didn't move. Not even a flinch. He just stood there, his posture perfect, his face unreadable. The only sign that he even felt it was the tightening of his jaw, the slight clenching of his fists. I could see it in his eyes, though. The pain, not from the coffee, but from the humiliation. The stain on his uniform wasn't just a mess, it was an insult. A deliberate attempt to break him, to get a reaction, to turn him into a joke. And the guy who threw it? He was laughing. His friends were, too, holding up their phones, recording, thinking this was the funniest thing they had ever seen. But something changed in that moment. The laughter didn't spread. No one else was amused. No one clapped or cheered or joined in. Instead, voices started to rise. "That's disgusting," someone shouted. "You should be ashamed of yourself," a woman said, shaking her head in disbelief. An older man stepped forward, his face red with anger. "You absolute disgrace." The guy's smug expression started to fade. His friends weren't laughing as loudly anymore. They shifted uncomfortably, realizing that they were suddenly the bad guys in this situation. And then, something even more unexpected happened. From the edge of the crowd, a man in a dark suit appeared. He had an earpiece in his ear and a serious expression. Security. He didn't hesitate. He walked straight up to the tourist, looked him dead in the eye, and said in a voice that was calm but firm, "Sir, you need to come with me." The tourist blinked. "Wait, what?" He forced a laugh, still trying to play it off. "Come on, man, it was just a joke." But the security officer didn't smile. He didn't argue. He simply repeated, "Come with me, now." The tourist glanced at his friends, expecting them to back him up. But now, they were stepping away. They had been all for the prank, until it stopped being funny. Now, they didn't want to be associated with him. People started pulling out their phones, but this time, they weren't filming the guard. They were filming him. The guy's face paled as he realized that this wasn't going to end well for him. He tried to protest, but it didn't matter. The security officer gave him no choice. He was escorted away, his so-called prank turning into the worst decision of his life. I later heard that he was banned from ever coming back to Buckingham Palace, maybe even from the country itself. And the guard? He stood there for a while longer, soaked in coffee, his uniform ruined. But his pride, his discipline, unshaken. Eventually another soldier came to relieve him. Only then did he turn and march away, his back straight, his head held high. And as I watched him go, something inside me shifted. I felt anger at the tourist, shame for how he had treated that soldier. But more than anything, I felt respect. Because in that moment, I realized something powerful. Dignity isn't about what happens to you, it's about how you respond. And that royal guard? He responded with more strength than anyone else on that street.